Welcome to the September 17th meeting of the Wasatch Groves Town Council. If we could have the roll call, please.
Mayor Bradley.
Here.
Councilman Wilson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gerald.
Here.
Councilman Lee.
Here.
Councilman Riley.
Here. If you would stand for the pledge, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, again, we ask for wisdom and guidance as we make decisions that affect our community. We pray for those that are in Colorado that are being flooded and are just in a real terrible situation. For those that have lost their lives, the family of those in Washington, D.C. and the Naval Yard, we pray peace and comfort for them. So we pray for these things in your name. Amen. All right. Any additions to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make two additions. Under old business, make it 10E, grading and road rock for Casey Road, C-A-S-E-Y. And the other one would be 10F, under old business, discussion of cigars contract with the town of Wasatch Groves.
Mayor, I might just,
Okay, Mike.
Vice Mayor, I know we talked earlier today. Just the matter that's been with their contract has been turned over to their attorney. And I just received the information yesterday from their attorney and I hadn't had a chance to review it. I don't know the subject matter exactly what the subject is, but it's to discuss the righteousness of paying them or not paying them. I'd like an opportunity to review that before we get up publicly.
Okay. Will that affect your...
Well, I disagree with legal. This has been going on for over a month now, and I believe legal's just being brought into it. I think we need to discuss it because we're talking about breach of contract and a couple other things. But the council, whatever the majority said, I just think it needs to be discussed tonight before we start running up legal fees.
Okay, we have two items that you want to add. Everybody all right with E, discussion of Casey Road? How about that? What are your thoughts, Jim?
If Mike hasn't had a chance to look at this, I think we need to ask him to take a look at first before we have any discussion here, because we need him to tell us, his take before we have a whole lot of discussion. It is a legal issue.
Okay.
I would say I wouldn't know what that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm along with my legal needs to get caught up.
Okay. So consensus, 5-0, will add E and not add it. All right. So the agenda as presented with the one change, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that.
Okay. Ryan makes a motion, I'll second. Further discussion on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. The consent agenda does not include, what is it called? The two meetings or the 2 minutes, I guess, were not brought up. That's a piece of paper here with the dates on it. Anyway, except for those, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda. Okay, Ryan makes a motion for a second.
Second.
Second by Ron.
Mr. Mayor, we're saying that the September 3rd and 10th minutes are not included.
Right.
What are we consenting?
Oh, yeah, the September, August 20th and September 3rd minutes are not included, so they'll be on a future consent agenda. Right, Susan?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So you're approving the 6th was in the original package, right?
Yes.
Okay, today we received an addendum for August 20th. Is that going to be tabled?
Well, she said that the 20th and September 3rd were not ready in time for inclusion in the agenda.
So then the September 10th would also be moved, or September 10th is as well?
September 10th, I think, is in there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to be clear about
Right.
It's just these 2 days.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
opposed, same sign. My motion passes 5-0. Public comments, I have one. Marge Herzog.
March Herzog, A Road. This Saturday, we're having the Adopt-A Road from 8 until 11. So anyone that can come out and help us with cleaning up Okeechobee. We will have the National Honor Society there again, but we do need people with trucks that can pick up what they collect. I did notice that the county is doing a much better job before they mow of picking up the stuff, so I'm hoping it's not as bad as it has been in the past trying to pick up confetti. The other thing is next Thursday, the 26th, the LGLA will have their meeting, and we are having one of our own representatives from our town, George Warren. He was born, raised, and reared here in Loxahatchee Groves, and he's now working for Scripps. So he is going to be presenting the grant program that he works under that is dealing with smoke cessation, the addiction of smoking. All right, thank you.
Art's question before you leave.
Yes.
I look at the sign we got on the side of Okeechobee Road. It says road adopted by the Landowners Association, Palm Beach County, but we don't have any recognition on that sign for the Honor Society of Seminole Ridge High School. I wanted to get a view from the council. I would like to see, they've been doing an outstanding job with you supervising on March. I'd like to see them get some recognition by a sign underneath that, supported by Seminole Ridge High School Honor Society. I want to see how you felt about it.
Well, I think the way the Adopt-A Road program works is that you have to have the organization that then brings in the workers, and that's the situation we're with. And we try to give them as much publicity as we can by taking pictures and putting it in the town crier. And also, we give Owen Miley pictures, and he publishes it in Palm Beach County. So they're getting probably more than we are. More often than not, they're getting credit for having, been there and done the work. And the LGLA is kind of, oh yeah, we were there. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Marge. All right, moving down, we have 6A. What's the status on that part?
Okay, these are the two budget resolutions, Your Honor. And as you know, we in an attempt to overcome the snafu with the advertising, we have a schedule with the Palm Beach Post to advertise tomorrow, the 18th. And we have scheduled these budget hearings to occur on Friday, the 20th of September at 6:30 in this room. We will be prepared to move forward at that time.
All right, so do we need a motion to continue this to
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that you, the motion to continue resolution 2013-13 relating to millage and 2013-14 relating to the budget until June 20th at 6:30 here in the
We need two separate motions on that?
I think you can do it as one motion and continue both resolutions.
Okay, one motion with both resolutions. Just to let the audience know, there was kind of a snafu in getting it in the paper, and there's a very tight regulation as to when you have your hearing in regards to the trim notice. That date was not met, therefore we have to have a special meeting Friday. We're going to talk about that later, or we talk about that this time?
Talk about it now.
Okay. So we've got in here that it would be Friday at 6:30, just approval of the budget. We're looking at, from what I understand, no change from last year's budget, military, But anyway, just to let you know, that's what this is all about.
And this also, the statute does provide timing limitations on how you can do it. And also, we cannot conflict with the county's budget hearing for the school board. And that's my understanding, Monday the 23rd was the county's budget hearing. So that left Friday is with the publishing deadlines. And the timing, you have to have the publishing be the option best to resolve the issue.
I understand we had Friday, Saturday, or Sunday to do it.
One of your choice.
I'm not sure Sunday.
Sunday, I give
All right,
Friday, Saturday.
I'll entertain a motion to continue these two.
Make a motion to continue resolution 2013-13, 2013-14 until our meeting on 9/20. That's 6:30.
Okay, have a second? Second, Ryan. Motion by Jim. Any discussion?
Everybody can make it but me.
Yeah, that's an important thing, that we have you all here on Friday.
When I was told I had to be here, I didn't get asked if I could make it or not, so I'm a little concerned that we might have only had 3 people that couldn't make it, which leaves us in jeopardy. I wasn't asked. I was told. Everybody else was asked, and I'm not going to lie, I was last, but I'm not asked.
And I thought it was earlier, because I've got it later on that night, so it's got to be short. Huh? 5 minutes, Sharon says. So, I mean, that's, it's a tough one. Can we move it earlier? Is it possible? No. Okay. All right.
I didn't get an answer, I guess, to the question. We made a decision to do this, but we only had 3 people lined up.
I don't know about that. I know I got a call, and but I wasn't at home before I could check the calendar. So.
Well, I think we all need to be in contact when we schedule meetings and stuff like that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Now, I understand Ron is working that night,
That's correct.
so he won't be here. Okay. All right. All right, moving then to, we're looking at item 8, ordinances.
Mr. Mayor, this is, council requested that we begin a new process for adopting an amendment to the residential enterprise ordinance. I'll go ahead and read the title, and then I'll turn it over to the staff, and they will report on the planning zoning board and the ordinance. This is ordinance number 2013-05, an ordinance of the town council, town of Waxahachie, Florida, amending part 3, entitled supplemental regulations, article 8, entitled conditional uses, section 80-020, entitled residential enterprise, of the town of Waxahachie Codes, and development code, to permit a limited number of customers to transact business at a location of residential enterprise, providing for conflict, severability, application, and effective date.
All right, staff. Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. The staff report for ordinance 2013-05 is presented on addendum 1 to the agenda package, which was sent out first reading, I believe. The amendment is a revision to section 80-20 residential enterprise of the Town's Land Development Code. As you recall, this item has been discussed at several previous council meetings, the latest of which was August 6th, 2013. And at that meeting, council directed staff to make revisions to subsection 80-20H of the ordinance to permit up to 3 clients or customers to be present on site at any given time at a residential enterprise location. The proposed revisions to the ordinance are presented on page 6 of the staff report. You can see the second paragraph down, parens H, titled clients or customers. The changes are presented in underlined strike-through fashion. The items to be deleted from the current language are struck through, and items to be added are underlined. Essentially, the revised subsection as amended will read H, clients and customers, up to 3 clients or customers may be present at the same time to transact business on the premises. The proposed amendment was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Board at its meeting last Thursday, September 12th, and they made 2 recommendations. The first was a recommendation for denial on the 5-0 basis, and the second motion was to refer the entire residential enterprise issue back to the ULDC Review Committee for further review. The basis of the P&Z denial wasn't necessarily the fact that we would be adding the ability for customers to be present on site, so much as it was with the concept, I think, of residential enterprise in the first place. That the P&Z felt that there wasn't enough definition of what a residential enterprise was, and that it could lead to the proliferation or the promotion of retail businesses located throughout the town, many of which might be inconsistent with the character of the town. And that by further allowing customers or clients to be on the premises, that will further promote or lead to the potential of some retail businesses located in the town that are consistent with the character. So, as I said, at least that's staff's opinion as to the basis for the 5-0 recommendation for denial. P&Z really felt that the whole concept of residential enterprise needed to be revisited by the UOBC. But based on the fact that this item has been in front of the council several previous meetings, been to P&Z a couple of times, and based on the fact that the council directed staff at the August meeting to draft this language, staff does recommend approval of the proposed amendments to section 8. I'll be happy to answer any questions that there are.
Mr. Mayor? Yes, Jim. Let me just read from the minutes we approved tonight. The motion was made to strike ULDC language regarding foot traffic in the current residential enterprise ULDC section. We did not strike the language. We amended the language. Strike is removed.
Yeah.
Amend is add something in its place. What you gave us has H in it, modified. I thought we were pretty clear in 5-0 vote, said we would strike the language on the August 6 minutes.
Yes.
We said strike it. Bring it back, we'll run with it. We understand that there's reservations. We would say that in the minutes, but we understood that there's reservations with P&Z on this initially. But we said make it simple, strike it, let's move forward. But we didn't strike it. Can you explain why we did not strike it and just leave it out?
Well, the current language says no client or customer shall be allowed on the premises to transact business of any nature. That's what we struck. And that's the language that deals with foot traffic in the code at this time. So that's what we struck. And then based on the direction of council and the discussion that led to that motion, we added the ability for up to 3 customers at a time to be on site.
Mike?
If I can, my recollection may be different, and if it is, then I regret that. But I thought if you wanted us to go back and bring forth to you the same ordinance that you had on first reading back in April, that was amended on first reading and went off on that, and if that was not the direction, then I'm as responsible for adding that, going back to that and adding that language as everyone else at this table, because I was under the impression you wanted us to go back and start over with the ordinance you had at first reading anyway.
No, it wasn't our intent. I thought we were trying to make it pretty simple, and I guess we can move forward on this with the recommendation that we strike the entire paragraph H, old and revised, and move forward with a vote to approve this.
Well, I could amend the title for you to do that.
Just to note, if you're going to do that, then you're leaving it wide open to as many clients at one time. Here you're limiting it to 3, which is what your original intent was.
We were trying to strike this sections, make it simple, move forward, and we can review these things in another time.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying you're really making it wide open, more intensive than. I mean, that's your pleasure.
Anybody else? Certainly, that's where I would move to.
Okay. Well,
I agree with Councilman Rocket. I could have sworn that we were clear about removing item number H, and I think you made an amendment here, and Mike, I understand where you're coming from, okay? But it's back to no foot traffic. But if on one hand we're saying no foot traffic, and then the next thing you know, we're saying up to 3 clients. But I say I agree with Jim that we should eliminate item H, and you know, we can always say we're opening a can of worms, or we're opening it up for anything we want to, but Waxahachie seems to hold its ground, and I don't believe you're going to have 10 or 20 people coming to buy guns at one time. Or I hope that if they're worried about retail business picking up in Waxahachie, I hope that doesn't happen. But I think this council agreed that we were to eliminate item H.
anybody else? Tom?
We did say we were going to eliminate item H. However, and I would vote for it, and I intend to make it simple and just make a motion that we're going to eliminate item H completely from this move forward. But to finish my comments, the P&C board is definitely against this. They are really concerned that there's going to be people opening up stores, selling anything and everything wherever they want to be. So I think we ought to let the ULBC committee look at it from the bottom up, because between the residential enterprise and the home-based business, to be honest with you, other than semantics, I don't understand the difference. When you make 2 of these different classifications that are out there, plus the ag-based businesses, between those 3, I don't know what you can't do. So maybe the ULBC committee really ought to look at it and figure out, that ought to be one of the things that they do look at. Is those 2 issues, do we want to continue them, do we want to combine them, do they want to define them somewhat different, and talk this through? But I agree for the situation with Bill, we did say what we were going to do, here's what we need to do. The 3 is something to worry about, Jim, because if you take away 3 and somebody else is selling fishing tackle, they might have a fishing jamboree next weekend and just be selling, let's just stop somebody from having a fishing flea market at their house next week and selling, everything you can imagine, including boats in their front yard. That's what their concern is. Because, we're not saying ag anymore. We're not saying it has to, community serving. Say most everybody here is fishing, so, once again, now we can, it's not hard to get there. Or lumber or anything like that. So that's why I think we need to get rid of these.
And anybody else? Right.
Yeah, I do recall us saying that we were going to eliminate H, but I do recognize the concerns that the P&Z board have in regards to just opening it up to unlimited customers, and that is a real issue. I know in the past we've talked about a lot of the illegal businesses here, and we're basically telling them it's all right. And so we need to decide, is it all right or is it not all right? I understand we're trying to help out Mr. Klein, and he's been waiting a really long time. But I would be inclined to stay with the recommendation of the P&Z with 3 for now, and we should prioritize with the ULBC committee to fix this, because you can't just leave it open and then all of a sudden, when we correct this, we get a whole bunch of people up in arms. So that's why.
Okay, anybody else? Tom?
So I would amend my motion to go with what's on the paper. I'm going to make a motion that we adopt with the limit of 3.
Okay.
And that we prioritize this as something for the ULBC committee.
All right. Tom has made a motion to accept staff recommendation and second by Ryan. Further discussion. Anybody else want to kick in on that? It does bother me that planning and zoning, is against this. I understand their concerns. I think to me, the part that goes along with historic Loxahatchee Groves is you have to live on the premise to do it. You know, it's kind of the, I think we do need to go back to ULDC and look at this whole thing, but our intention has always been the person that lived there and had a little business could continue their business. And Bill has been out there a long time. You know, it does bother me a little bit that we did say, we thought very simply by just taking away the eliminating foot traffic, because I think that's what the first thing said, was no foot traffic, and we just want to take that phrase out. You know, but if the 3 helps in limiting, you know, that, you know, as to a major thing, then I think I agree with that. So we have a motion and a second to go with what's on here. All in favor, signify by saying yes.
Did P&Z see this revision to discuss? In other words, they see that up to 3 clients was in place of what we used to have?
Yes.
And then, no, it just didn't make a difference to them as to approve or not approve.
That's true.
All right, my perspective was that if you don't say anything about foot traffic, you just eliminate it, which is what we had suggested to do. You didn't say put a number in there. That it doesn't say you can, it doesn't say you can't, but it takes the restriction away that Mr. Klein is facing. And the item, but in fact, this P&Z board or back to ULDC is fine at some point. Once we get something from them that, you know, we've already asked them to do, let's not clog the wheel and ask them to look at something else and not get the other thing completed. I just heading down that path. You can say anything, it's silent.
All right. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I have no public comment cards. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Roll call vote.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Councilman Yang?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zero?
Yes.
Councilman Roderick?
Yes.
Mayor Vernon?
Yes. All right.
Just a quick,
I'm sorry, public hearing on October 1st? Second reading?
that was my question, Mike. In other words, do we have to have an advertisement?
Yes, you do.
And the advertisement would be longer than what we have to actually,
It's 10 days.
All right, moving to, we're looking at 9A, administrative update.
Thank you. First thing I wanted to report on is the staff met, pursuant to your direction at the last meeting, staff met with Mr. Yee, it was town management staff, our town planner, and the code enforcement staff. We discussed issues at the center. We talked about the 1988 agreement that governs the center as it relates to those conditions. Mr. Yee has indicated that he wants to comply. He's going to be in the process of getting with his consultants, site designers, because he's also looking at making improvements to the center. I advised him that I would be reporting this to you tonight, and I'll be back with him to try to, you know, I indicated that I don't think the town council wanted to be unreasonable, that we would work with him. So I will need to get with him and work out a timeline so that I can report back to you in terms of how soon he's going to be able to make the improvements that he wants to accomplish for the center. That's the status of that. Mayor, you and you council, you had asked me to come up with an evaluation form relative to the way to review the management company. I have done research, and I do have an evaluation form that I think is going to work. So I will put it together, and I can bring it back to you when we October 1st meeting. So I just want to let you know we're moving forward on that, as you requested. In terms of future meetings, I wanted to let you know, as we had discussed previously, we will try October, November, December to go back to the first meeting of the month and not have the second meeting. But I do want to indicate that October is still a little iffy. We might need to have the second meeting. Tomorrow, Mike, Jim Fleischman and myself will be meeting with Attorney Marty Perry and Mr. Lalonick to discuss the PUDs that will be coming before you in the near future, as well as the road agreement as it relates to the college development, the Locke Center and Locke Commons. And at that point, we'll probably have a good idea. I don't think they're going to be ready for October, the agreement will be ready. There's a possibility it could go to November, but they may be looking at an October date. I know Mr. Perry is pushing hard based upon his clients wanting to move forward. We're not doing it for that reason. Obviously, the agreement will have to be ready and appropriate, but that's what we were discussing. So there is a possibility that if we do have to have a second meeting, it might be in October. It might be relative to the PUDs and the roadway agreement for those projects. I do have a letter that I'm going to hand out to you. This is not for any immediate action tonight, but I just want to make you aware of it. We received a letter from Stephen Abrams, Mayor of Palm Beach County, to Mayor Browning. And this relates to, you may remember last year, they wanted us to look at contributing a share of the funding to the Office of the Inspector General, while this is the 24 municipalities that are not part of the lawsuit. We're in the process of getting that additional information, which we'll provide you on October 1st. And at that point, we'll make a recommendation as to whether, at least to town council, as to whether you want to entertain doing that payment while this lawsuit continues to go on. So just wanted you to have a copy of the letter. Wanted to let you know that we'll be bringing that back to you in October for consideration. Next item is we had talked about at the last meeting the RETAG members and the roadway question. As you know, they've been operating with 3 people for at least the last 6 or 7 meetings. So I know Councilman Golson has been very concerned, and the appointees are Councilman Golson and Councilman Liang. And we did a review. It does appear that neither member, Mr. Painter or Mr. Miles, attended a meeting in 2013. That was 4 meetings so far. And going back into last year, they didn't attend the last 2 meetings of May and April of 2012. As you know, there was a 6-month hiatus. That's why you have the time gap. So for your information and for those council members, if they do want to undertake any action, the resolution 2011-005, which governs the duties and scope as it relates to the RETAG committee, item F indicates that attendance requirements shall be imposed on all members of the roadway, equestrian trails, and greenway advisory committee. Unless excuse of absence is granted by the committee, a member of the roadway, equestrian trails, and greenway advisory committee shall be removed by the town council if he/she has missed 5 consecutive meetings of the committee within a 12-month period. So I present that to you for your discussion as to what those members of the council want to do, what the council wants to do as a whole. If that is the situation, I know the chair this morning has indicated she is concerned because they're always operating. We had to actually postpone 1 meeting because it was really up in the air as to whether we were going to have a quorum. So these members are missing a lot of meetings. I think it's impacting the function of the committee. So just bring that to your
All right, so it's going to require an action on our part, or just the 2 council members whose representatives that they chose. I would think they just replace it.
Yeah, I think it's up to 2 council members to make the appointment. I believe this council to ratify the appointment.
Well, do they have to, do they have the council remove them?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would think the council has to remove them, but I don't, as far as the appointment, I don't know if the council has to ratify the 2 members.
No, but it does say council, it says removed by the town council.
Okay.
So I would suggest if you want to consider that, you put it on the agenda for the next meeting, after discussing the possible action on membership of the council. And by then, maybe some information, some possible replacements. But that way, but it does have to be removable by the town council.
When's the next RETAG meeting?
That'll be set for the 25th or 26th.
I guess what they want to do is get some new people on for the next meeting because they're going over some things that are comprehensive plan issues and such. So I don't know if that's, I don't want to start putting stuff on next week, Friday's meeting, but not having somebody before the 25th sort of delays it.
And Mayor, I say we didn't advertise this, because we didn't ask for any kind of resumes or anything, because we didn't know what we were going to find out. But I do know that I do have one unsolicited letter from Mr. Keith Harris about an interest on joining this committee. You know, Mr. Harris is also on our planning and zoning board. He's been doing a very good job, but just want to let you know he has places where
It's, to me, my thought is, it's one thing when you're dealing with the county and they say you gotta do this by this date or this date by that date. I'm fine with the two council members selecting somebody, inviting them to the meeting, and then we vacate the spots and vote those people in at the next opportunity. I mean, you know, because
You want to
they
take a motion
suggest.
tonight to,
What's that?
you want to take a motion tonight to remove them? If you could.
And we can do that, you know, and then have the two council members that have those two slots be able to appoint.
Do we have to miss 5 consecutive?
that's what it's 5 consecutive. It goes back, as I said, it goes back to April of 12.
Okay, so it's way more than-
There was a hiatus of 6 months.
It's way more than 5. So anyway, I'll entertain a motion to vacate those two seats.
I'll make it.
Okay, Ryan makes a motion. Second. Second by Tom. Further discussion? Rob?
And what are the two, just for the record, the names?
Patrick Payne and David Monk.
It bothers me that we keep discussing this over and over. We finally did something positive tonight. At least we removed the two that don't want to show up to the meetings. But for the two councilmen, now if you'll let me pick a second person, I'll find somebody tomorrow to get on that committee. But for the council members,
I got somebody right now, I'll work on it.
okay, then if we're missing one, I mean, I'd like to know myself if we got the two right now. In other words, you say you got one.
I've got.
Okay. All right, do we have the other one by chance?
Okay.
Okay. So that's where I stand on that. We have such a hard time coming up with two people, and I respect these people that volunteer for these committees. They put in a lot of long hours, they don't get paid for it, but I know there's people out there that will get on the red tag committee and get their ass.
All right. It's a red tag. Red tag.
Read that. Read that.
That's like sales. Yeah. All right, so,
Now, we're gonna go with the appointments, or?
no, we're gonna make a motion to vacate the two. We have a motion and a second. I have no public comment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Do we need to appoint, can we appoint somebody tonight? Or,
I would think you can.
yeah,
You're ready.
if you're ready.
Okay, I'm going to appoint, as long as she accepts it, Joe Siciliano, recently joined the Wasatch Groves community, so.
Good deal. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna recommend my Keith Harris. He's been doing a good job for me to.
Excellent. Okay, so we have two people. Do we need to vote on that, or is that all right?
Councilman appointments.
Good deal.
Full committee now.
Full committee. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know the committee will be very happy.
Yes, that's good. All right.
Okay, the next item I have, Mayor, and I'm sorry I have so many tonight, there's a lot of stuff going on. Just wanted to inform the council, we did have the Southern Boulevard workshop on September 5th. And unfortunately, we didn't get the turnout that we were hoping, but we are getting a lot of people that are also providing information to us relative to a survey regarding Southern Boulevard that the staff have put together. Jim White did a great job with it, so we're getting a lot of feedback from the workshop, and some people have come in and met with us. So we're getting the feedback that I think we need to move forward and more people will work on it, and I just want to let you aware of that. Stantec Engineers, they also attended the workshop and made themselves available pursuant to FDOT to talk about pond site and any other questions that people had, so I appreciate that, and that leads me into my next item. The Stantec Engineers have contacted me, and they're looking for a meeting. Before I grant them this meeting, I wanted to talk with town council, because what they want to talk about is if we have any input relative to lighting design and aesthetics on Southern Boulevard. I think where they're going with this is you're aware, as an example, Royal Palm had a certain lighting scenario that they wanted that they used for their parts of, going through their city on Southern Boulevard. I'm not aware of us previously discussing or having any kind of standard. Certainly, if I have your input, I'll be happy to communicate that. Or we can look at what might work for the town, but you have to look at some of the scenarios too, because sometimes if you look for special things, then it becomes incumbent upon us relative to the cost. So I'm just trying to get an idea of any comments you have tonight, so I can take these comments into that meeting with me.
All right, any comments?
As somebody who lives there, I'm concerned about light pollution. You know, I'm concerned about noise pollution with the increased traffic, so whatever they could do, you know, as far as treatment of the area, some sort of, some heavy landscaping, some sort of, we've had residents requesting sound walls, but certainly big highlights that are going to put a lot of light into the surrounding neighborhood and area is not what we need. We have a lot. One thing that Jim pointed out very well in the meeting was the number of residents that live in the area from, say, D Road to F Road. There's something like, I think he said, over 60 residential units. Probably half of those fronts on Boulevard along Tangerine, so I know that they don't want, you know, to have this, to go from what we have now to some future gigantic light you can go out and read the newspaper at 12 o'clock at night. I don't think anybody needs that. So.
And then we've got stuff in our rural vistas that any commercial along there is a, you know, low, you know,
Low lights.
down type light type thing. I would think kind of the same thing would apply if they're putting light. But anyway, anybody else comments on that? John?
The only thing I'd like to see is we got people walking along Southern Boulevard right now with kids, with bikes. I'd like to see a sidewalk if there's room, so people can at least walk with a little bit of safety.
Or anybody else?
That's a place for bikes too, because there's a lot of people that use bikes just as much as they walk. It's a long, you know, long way for a lot of people to get around.
That would be a good thing along that southern corridor. I just don't want to happen what started happening on Seminole Track. And one of us driving down that thing, saw what the county did in their wisdom. There's huge light poles everywhere. I don't think that was the intent of that, but anyway, you know, so anybody else?
Yeah, I would just say if they could limit the height, because the higher it is, the further the light's going to be thrown out.
I'm going to go back in.
So height limitation seems to be your big concern at this point.
And pollution.
Associated
back in
aesthetics.
our, you know, back in our community.
And I'll see what they offer me, and then I'll keep everybody in council as we move forward.
Okay.
Earlier, you had directed us, based upon the amendment, to take the issue of the residential enterprise back to ULBC to have them discuss that. You may remember a couple meetings back, I asked you to think about other items that you would like staff to take to the ULBC. I'm really looking for any input you have. I can probably wait another meeting, so it's like a second reminder, but you know, we're getting ready to hit that period now, October through December, where we might do 2 meetings a month to try to make sure the committee finishes up their work. So obviously, any input I have from the council relative to any provisions of ULBC that you have concern about, now would be the time to let the staff know. Doesn't have to be tonight. You know, send me an email, whatever, call me. But you know, the sooner I know, the better it's going to be to move forward with the rest of the agenda.
Okay. All right.
The mayor and I discussed, we have, as you know, we have Administrative Policy 313, which addresses how we handle putting together the rules of procedure for town council meetings. One of the concerns is that we don't continue to have items on the agenda without backup. And so what I suggest to the mayor, something that we can do is if in the future, if a council member provides the information to me within the deadline, but doesn't have backup, what we can do is write into the policy that we will put that matter on the meeting you're requesting. However, no final action will be taken until we have the backup to accompany it, or staff has the opportunity to provide the backup for the next meeting for discussion. I'm raising it, Mayor, you may want to, but that's what
We can keep conversations to a minimum.
So, I don't know if the council wants to entertain, you know, we've made several amendments and we're improving this policy as we go along. I think that would probably, you know, help the council in terms of not having to deal with an item where there's no backup and, you know, looking for action to be taken without at least having proper information in return to it. So, if it's something you desire, we can go ahead and amend the policy one more time to include that provision that I just kind of articulated.
Anybody want to jump on that one?
Well, I'll start with, since added an item to the agenda without any backup. Discussion of Okeechobee and D Road traffic light. I don't know if there's a lot of backup that I need to provide. That's a conversation with the Oaklands. We've had many times, many different pieces of that. If there's a need to regurgitate all the conversations we've had on the council, I don't see that necessarily, but if we wanted to add some bullet points, including the things that we have discussed in the past, it wouldn't be necessarily complete because it's going to be from a recollection, or these are the things that we talked about. There's certain things that do not have backup necessary to discuss and to make a decision. There are others that may very well need backup. We've added something, grading of road rock, for example, that Ron has added on here. I don't look for backup. I want this conversation, what it is that we need to talk about, because I can't call Ron up and say, Ron, what is it you want to talk about as far as specifics? You've given me enough to know what we're going to talk about. So I don't know what point you decide that you need backup or you don't need backup. I think we're getting to a point where if the council person wants to add something, if you think, for example, that something needs backup, or if there's backup that you could ask for, I don't think that the requirement should be.
Well, if I may, Mayor, and please stop me if you want, I think the issue is, I agree with you, Councilman, not everything is going to require every amount of backup. But I think, and Mayor, please, when I'm speaking, please stop me. I think what the Mayor was concerned about is the fact that when you just list an item and there's nothing with it, you don't necessarily know what you're going to be talking about that evening. So whether it's some bullet points or something that at least gives the rest of the council an idea of what they're going to be talking about as it relates to that issue. Would that be fair?
And my point was, not so much when it's self-evident, but just so that we're not dealing with something that we know nothing about. So we come up here to a meeting and then we don't know and you don't know, and so if it's something that's a new issue, we need a little bit of where it's coming from and why it's coming up, so that we know it. We really don't have to change anything if you don't want it, but I would encourage you to try to, if it's something brand new, I know I don't like somebody just handing something to me that night and say, here you go, and vote on it tonight, because, especially if it's something different.
So that we don't vote on something we don't know what we're talking about, maybe Mark could give us an example of what changes to that policy might be at the next time around, and we can look at it, and if that's the case. I see both sides of it, because, if I want to talk about something that we've talked about 100 times,
Right.
I guess I don't need to bring in every issue all back up. But
And what I
then
said,
again, that's a whole other issue, talking about things 100 times. But
and what I said earlier, if you didn't catch it, I just said that it's not that we're not going to put it on the agenda. We will put it on the agenda for discussion. But, and I'm not saying you need to provide the backup. I'm saying staff may provide it at the next meeting, just to give you the information you need to make whatever decision is being requested or talked about.
Okay. Yes, Rob.
I never have backup, okay? If I need backup, if the management can't give it to me, then I'm going to have to take it out. For instance, and Mark could give us an example and let us know what he's talking about. But for instance, I believe there's some residents in here tonight from Casey Road, okay? I found out that Casey Road had a major problem, okay? I got pictures to show it, but you're flooding on Casey Road, okay? At our last council meeting, I asked everybody on this council, that was September the 3rd, to, on the way home or the next day, please just take a ride over on Casey Road. From F Road to Folsom, I said that it needed road rock material, okay? We've got a contract with the Waxahachie Water Control District, okay? I'm not going to get the contract. I'm not going to put it in here when I request something. That was an addendum tonight, Casey Road, okay? So because it happened after Tuesday, and I believe we're supposed to have our stuff turned in by Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest, so the agenda can be prepped. Well, I've come across problems that may be Wednesday, maybe Thursday, it may be Saturday on the weekend, and the time limit has already expired for getting it put on the agenda. So that's why I do the addendums. But when I put something without backup, my backup will be the residents from Casey Road. My backup will be pictures, contracts and stuff like that, and then I'll have it for the council meeting, so the council will be aware of where I'm coming from.
Okay, Tom?
Look forward to the day when Ron doesn't have to be the one that's coming around and bringing the emergency road out all the time. And I really think that whatever we need to do as a town to make that happen, we need to do that. I mean, I'm here to support him on that, because that's not the way it ought to be. Because if the way that if they're constantly reacting to whoever's ringing the bell today, they're never going to get anything done. Because they're just going to run around, and whoever rings the bell the hardest and loudest is going to get it done. They need to get a plan going, which I know that they're working on, and they've had tried to implement, and they need to proceed with that. And, you know, I understand his impatience. At the same time, we need to get going, and that's no way to run an outfit the way we're talking about. So, where I do see Ron's concern, I think it's a symptom of us not having our stuff together as we should, and we need to get it done.
Okay,
That's my thoughts.
anybody else? All right, Mark, anything else?
No, so you want to just leave the policy as it
Yeah,
is?
let's leave it right now. Let's attempt, if it's something different, let's attempt to get, you know, at least some bullet points or something if it needs to be. Something, it's an old item, but it doesn't. All right, anything else?
One last item here, and I want to get a clarification from the council. On the August 20th minutes, one of the last comments by Councilman Rocket was that he would like staff to take a look at the foreclosure requirements or issues. Obviously, council didn't give a consensus, but I would like to know when you're going to do that consensus. And number two, if Councilman Rocket could let me know whether he specifically wants staff to take a look at so we can move forward.
Okay, Jim?
When it came up, as I recall, it was after the mayor had made a comment, which was relative to, I think, properties that were disarray. And I thought what I was trying to do was complement what he was saying in looking at the foreclosure policy that we have, and work through that as an attempt to address his point. So it's really something the mayor had raised at the end, and my reference to the policy was where I think you would find some action areas that they could act on. Not have to create something new. That's what that was for. It was
I
really
get a
great.
consensus, Mayor.
Would that, you're referring to the registration ordinance we have, or anything else?
Yes.
And I don't think my comment was that. My comment was, I find myself in kind of a dilemma. And we don't want to tell people how to maintain their yards, and we don't want to do that. At the same time, some of these businesses that people walk away from really need to be, something needs to be done.
I think just for your edification, the discussion kind of, it came up toward the end. I know Ken Johnson, I believe it was, got up and made some comments about property values and that kind of thing. And I think that's where you all were kind of, toward the end of the meeting, concentrating on that factor. And, you know, that's why I was trying to make the link.
It wasn't a major point. It was, the intent was to add that as a sub-point to what the mayor. Now, it may not have been the same thing you're speaking of, but if you have a business or a property that goes into a foreclosure mode, we have certain things that we can do. That's really as complicated as that. But don't take it as the item that you should go read it, study it, and come back and tell us what you're going to do, because that was not the intent.
All right.
That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I got a comment about that. Royal Palm Beach and Wellington, they've got a management company that specializes in monitoring foreclosures, communicating with the bank. They handle everything. It doesn't cost the town anything except if they put liens and stuff on properties because of code enforcement and stuff, they follow up. When that property is sold, then 50% of those liens go to the town and 50% goes to the management company. It does not cost this town anything. I've talked with the man. He's willing to come here to this council, speak to the public, speak to the council. Royal Palm Beach speaks highly of it. Wellington speaks highly of it. It was a relief of a nightmare for them because the banks don't want to communicate with them. There's places out there that they can't find out who owns it. We've got a situation on C Road north of Okeechobee. I mentioned this before. I think there's a guy that's living in it off a bicycle now. He's tried to clean it up. The house was burnt, the house was used as a drug house. It still looks about the same, and nobody knows who it belongs to, okay? Now, we've got a public works man, okay? We sent him out to update our list of, I think, 41. How many foreclosures we got right now?
I think that's about right, it's in that percentage.
Okay, so we've got about 40-something properties, and basically the truth of the matter is we don't know where they're going or what they're doing, okay? We can tell if they're clean, if they're mowed, and stuff like that. The banks need to be accountable. If nobody wants to claim ownership, then we claim ownership of the property, and we do what it needs to take care of it. It becomes the town's property. But it costs us $900 for our public works man to go around and verify that these foreclosures were being cleaned, they were still there, whether they were occupied or not. That costs you taxpayers $900. $900 isn't much, okay? But this management company that does it for a living, it wouldn't cost you anything to let them handle it, and they're very thorough. So that's the recommendation, is that I'll touch base with, if the council will allow me, I'll touch base with this management company. I'll see if I can get on for the next agenda, not Friday, but the next town council meeting, or sometime in the near future. I think we need to hear them, and then we need to make a decision on what route we want to take.
All right, any other? Jim?
Mark, what's your take on that concept? You familiar at all with this?
Yeah, I'm familiar that there is a company that both Wellington and Royal Palm Beach uses. I wouldn't, I would say this, I mean, obviously, if that's the direction the council wants to go to, I think probably what you would do is you would do an RFP or something, because I don't even know if this company can bid now that we're talking to a council member. I'd have to defer and legally to see if that's an issue or not, but, I mean, Councilman's right, I guess. I mean, Vice Mayor's right. I guess if you contract with somebody and the town is splitting the proceeds with that individual, it's not costing us anything. I mean, obviously Wellington and Royal Palm Beach have a much heavier load than we do, and they needed to get a handle on it. I mean, whether we went out, we do have a status on most of these properties. I mean, it's something I could have our code enforcement vendor, if you want us to do code enforcement. We just never got any further direction beyond doing the...
I like the idea what Ron said. I just want to know if you're aware of what's going on.
I have the...
I would think if it's being done in Wellington and Royal Palm, and we were to ask the same vendor or explore with the same vendor, I don't know if we can't do something like a piggyback situation. If it's not that we're paying them anything, it's that they're taking a percentage of something we get paid. I don't know how that falls into the scope.
Yeah,
but
you do have
something that's reasonable. It would help us maybe take a little bit of load off the town management and let them have somebody else that comes in and says, hey, I won't charge you anything until you guys get paid something. And we don't budget that necessarily counting on getting paid. So I would think it would be a good idea to pursue it.
Can I make a recommendation, maybe that information be provided to the town manager, and then we can look at it in light of the procurement as well, and then get some more information directly from the vendor and the other cities as far as what they do. And I'm not familiar with the concept, I've not seen the contracts, that's fine. But anything you do obviously has to be consistent with your procurement. There are exceptions for certain types of services and piggybacking procedures, but I just want to make sure that we do contract with somebody, we do it the way we need to do it.
Okay, I got Ron and Tom.
I don't we have this management come to this council and express where they're coming from, who they're working for. This is not costing us anything, okay? Now you're talking about turning it back over to the town manager, okay? This town, this management company has had a long time to try and solve our problems with foreclosures and stuff, okay? We bring them to the council. If management has the lawyers here, management's here, it don't cost us anything extra for legal to look over, $100-something an hour, okay? They come here, they speak to the people, they speak to the council, and we make a decision that night on whether we want to use them or not. It's back to the same old thing. We talk, but we don't get much accomplished.
Okay, Tom.
Couple things. One is this is an example of stuff just brought up out of nowhere. I didn't know we were going to talk about all this. I got a question. What happened to all the money that we've already collected from the registration? What happened to the $30-something thousand that we got from the bank? We're going to split that people, that's 30,000 that would have turned into 15 real quick. So that's one issue, just off the top of my head. But this is why we shouldn't be talking about things without having everybody have a chance to think about it. Second, you can't just go out and say, hey, I know somebody that does this, I'd like to get them over here. I know people that do about everything we got in the town, and they're friends of mine. Well, golly, why don't we get them to come do it? That's not how it's done. We have an IG that's sitting here sending us a letter, do we want to pay for this? And we're talking about, let's get a guy, let him come by, have no competition, say if we want him or not. That's not how you do things. We are a government agency, and there are rules, and if we're not going to abide by them, there's no business of this council to pretend. Now, why do we have a lawyer here to be telling us this? We have procurement issues that have to be talked about. We can't just pick somebody because somebody else uses them, and they're friends of so-and-so. I know how things go on around, and I don't really want to be associated with how things go on around. I really don't. And I don't take them as my role model. And I don't really think that without preparation, we ought to just go off on a thing and invite somebody over here to be our next vendor just because. Because like I said, there's $30,000 that would have turned into 15. I think we did pretty good with the 30. Probably never had on any money that we spent on Frank's 900. And maybe we ought to check and see who hasn't paid. Maybe there's some people that haven't paid. But at the same time, to think that every house that's not up to whomsoever standards in Wasatchie Groves, they could be wrong. Because I know people who do scrapping, and they keep all scrap up in their front yard. And Mark knows who I'm talking about. They're not in foreclosure. That's just how they run their place. I know another person, 3 houses down, they never cut the grass. I don't know why, but it's higher than their fence, but that's how they like it. I can't do nothing about it. You know, where are we going with this? You know, they're not being foreclosed. So, you know, what is the issue? If the issue is cleaning up the town, well, then we have to address that. If the issue is foreclosed houses, we've got to address that. But like I said, we've seen that ahead on Deeds Collecting. I agree with them. The grow house on C Road is what it is. But if the guy still owns it, not in foreclosure, we aren't all powerful. We can't just do that. We can't just go knock down the guy's house. So, I don't know.
Okay, Ron?
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with John on that, but it was management that brought this subject up. It wasn't me. Okay, and the house on C Road, if our team knows who owns that house, I'd like to know tonight. Since they're taking care of this problem, at least let us know. I was told that we don't know who owns it, okay, and the county doesn't know who owns it. And it's back to the $30-something thousand. I may be wrong, but management can correct me tonight. I thought that $30-something thousand of the lien was brought about when Frank Spence was here. Now, am I wrong about that? In other words, was it y'all that brought it about?
It was us that brought it about. It was 34,000 change. It was a code enforcement issue that there was a gentleman who was going to buy the property, and Wells Fargo wanted to make the transaction. So Wells Fargo was willing to pay the amount that was in the lien, and the gentleman picked up the additional code issues and addressed those. And that's the story behind that. I'll just say, I was asking for, because I'm trying to accommodate your needs. I didn't mean to get into that issue. I was asking for a clarification. The management company will do whatever you direct us to do. If you want us to look at the C Road property, we'll do it tomorrow. If you want us to look at a foreclosure company, we'll do that. Just give me the direction I'll be happy to do.
All right, anybody else?
If I may make another comment. Mr. Mayor, you had something to add before I add a second?
No, go ahead. Chair always gives.
I know, but you get an opportunity at least once before I go. I like the idea of what Ron's presenting. I'd like us to know more about it. I agree that we don't just jump in and have somebody come and make a decision at that meeting without more information as to who else is doing it. But it seems like if we have some locally that are working for a couple of towns, and it seems to be working for them, then based on our procurement policy, we may have a mechanism to go forward with that. But I guess there's two questions, or two things that Ron seemed to bring up. One, invite these folks in to talk to us. And of course, he mentioned maybe we make a decision right then. I don't agree with that. The other thing was to have legal, maybe take a look at this, get a better understanding of what's going on in that arena. I don't see that as a problem. It's something I think we can take advantage of. And if we can ask Mike can do that, if that's, Mike, do you think that's enough?
Really,
For you
this
to
is a
look at
matter-
that, just understand maybe better what is going on and how it might fit the town? Would that be something you could do on your own, or?
Well, what I need to do is to see what maybe Wellington or Royal Palm agree to, just so I see the concept. But I'm more, want to make sure that, we have a procurement code, and if we follow these requirements or waive these requirements, to do it properly. That's really my concern. The policy of hiring somebody, whatever, that's really your choice. But I'd be happy to take a look at what they've done so I can understand the concept and see what your options would be under your procurement code, so you can make some decisions in the near future on how to go forward.
Okay,
So
so
Mayor,
Since the issue was brought up tonight, let me just say this, because I just wanted to dispel the fact that we haven't acted. Councilman Jarrell asked me to look, when he was Councilman Jarrell, he asked me to look at this before. I submitted to him December 29th the information. I had already gotten this information once from Royal Palm Beach, and I provided it to council. And at the time, council showed no interest, so we didn't move forward. I can provide, I don't know if Mike got it, I have to double check and see if you were a copy. You may not have been, it may have only been the council. I can get it to Mike, but at that point in time, the information when I transmitted it to Councilman Jarrell was December 29th, when I was asked to get the information. So I'll be happy to provide it to you all again, but at that time, I asked you for comments. You all didn't seem interested, so that's the only reason why we didn't take any further action.
We did a consensus, we were going to pursue a better understanding and get back to us maybe next week.
That was.
All right.
I would like to see how that all goes before we discuss it.
Okay. I think there's a little difference between Tom, we cannot compare ourselves with Wellington or Royal Palm. They have codes that say you got to pressure clean your roof if it gets dirty. They have codes that say all kinds of stuff. So a company like that can come after a foreclosed property and really rack up a lot of bills very quickly, because we do not have codes on the height of your grass or what color your house is. I don't know that they're going to be as interested. But at the same time, if we're going to do this, and I don't mind looking into it, we've got to do it in the right way. So if we get an idea, even if they came in and did a presentation, we would have to put it out for bid, because I'm sure if there's one company that does it, there's going to be 10 companies that do it, and maybe one does it for less than half. At the same time, if they realize that our fines are not that great, they might decide that 50% of what we would charge really wouldn't be worth their time and effort. But anyway, so is it consensus that we have them look into this issue and get copies of Mark's letter to council member? Okay, we all right with that?
Okay with me?
I'll provide you that information again
Okay.
and do my.
Ryan, you all right?
Not so much, but
Yeah. Okay, I think personally, this thing, we've got an issue right now. If you all are watching the market, it's changing very quickly. The foreclosed homes, most of it, if it's any kind of bargain at all being bought, people are making offers on them and stuff like that. But,
I've seen the houses, at least in my part of the Los Angeles areas, are moving pretty quickly, and there's not a lot of stuff sitting around. So, I'm wondering if we're chasing a problem that's past, and things, like we said, are turning around. So
that's kind of my thought, but anyway, we can, if you want to come back and we'll look at this another time. All right, is that the end of your?
That's it.
Okay. Right.
Just a question, administrative update by town manager. All right, now, basically, we don't really know what he's talking about until we come to the meeting. I would like to see it to where we're transparent and he doesn't have to explain everything. But if he's going to be talking about a certain subject, just that subject under management comments, so that people can have an idea of what he's going to be discussing or what he's going to update us on. In other words, if we have to have agenda items in at a certain time so that people are aware of what's going on, I feel like the town manager should be treated equally. In other words, I want to know what he's going to talk about, so if he's not going to talk about something that needs to be updated, and every meeting I ask for updates on certain roads and stuff like that. Well, if he's going to be discussing it, then I won't have to ask him. I want a consensus from the council when it comes to administrative update of the town manager. Can he put down what he will be talking about? Not in detail, just.
All right. Is everybody all right with that?
I'm going to ask Mark again for his input after I make a comment. I presume, like we as council members, something comes up on Saturday that we bring to the next council meeting on Tuesday because it just came up. So I would expect, if you send out an agenda and you may have some items that you want to cover or plan to cover, then you could include those. But if you don't know what's going to happen on Saturday, on Wednesday, then obviously you have other items you may add. I would expect that would work for you possibly.
Absolutely, I can give you what I know I'm going to cover and give you, because my stuff is all informational, right? If you notice, I'm not looking for any directions other than clarifications, and then I will put something on. So, yeah, I know what we'll be talking about, I'll be happy to list those, and you are absolutely correct. Just like if something happens in the town, and you want to bring it up under your council comments, that's certainly your prerogative. I'll be happy to do the same thing, but I just need, you're right, I need to be able to, if something comes up, even if it's Monday or Tuesday before the meeting, we need to be aware of it. You know, publicly, I'd be able to bring that up.
Okay. All right. So everybody all right with that? Okay. If we get public comments the same way, just joking, just joking. All right. Moving to 10A.
Mayor, 10A is the Valley Crest issue relative to cost recovery expenses. On August 20th, the town council elected to review the matter to a later date after we offered the town manager and town attorney a chance to further review the figures of the matter. We went ahead and did that, and as part of your backup, you have my agenda report, the Mike's report, and you also have another submission from Attorney Coviello attempting to argue his point on the matter as far as the cost recovery. I am going to read you, though, part of the agenda report because I think this kind of sheds some light on where I'm coming from, and then I'll turn it over to Mike if Mike has any additional comments from his research. But as indicated, since the August 20, 2013 Town Council meeting, the Town Attorney and Town Manager have both examined the minutes and the audio-video recordings of the proceedings. Attorney Coviello requested the approval of recycling that evening, subject to the modifications on the size of the waste pile, with the condition that Valley Crest modify the application to remove the nursery component. Upon that request, Councilmember Liang modified the motion to approve Resolution 21302 with the condition that the applicant return the site plan amendment within 6 months to eliminate the nursery component, and the approval also includes the modification of the waste pile being 100 by 100 by 10. The seconder of the motion, Rocket, agreed with the modifications of the motion, and it passed 5-0. Since Attorney Coviello requested the condition which required the site plan amendment, the interpretation of the management company that Valley Crest was required to incur more costs due to council direction is not accurate. Therefore, it is the management company's amended position that Valley Crest should pay the additional costs associated with the processing of the site plan amendment. And with that, I'll turn it over if Mike has any comments on his.
No, I just, at the last meeting, the issue had come up about the context in which you were to proceed with the application as a standalone landscape maintenance, and I had asked for an opportunity to go back and review the information, and I did provide that information to you in the memo. I can answer any questions, but I think it was more important to have the information of what occurred without, I'm guessing, that evening, so I appreciate the time to go back and look at it.
Okay. Next step. Do we need presentation?
Mr. Coviello is here. He was here the first time. I think appropriate to allow him to provide you whatever new requests or additional requests you may have.
Okay.
Mayor, members of the council, David Coviello here on behalf of Valley Crest. Who would like to just briefly speak and address staff's revised report? After the last meeting, you asked staff to go back after I indicated that the violation issued to Valley Crest was in fact issued in error. And in fact, under the county code at that time, we always had the opportunity to install, always had the opportunity to operate a landscape service company on its own as a standalone business. And in fact, the violation improperly cited us under the AGR section of the code, which is a landscape service business in connection with the nursery. So we went through a 2.5-year process scrambling to do a nursery. In fact, we could have just simply followed the site plan and went on our way as a landscape service company. So staff sort of glossed over that issue, and I think they're in agreement that the violation was in fact issued in error. Being that's the case, we would have only had to come before you a single time if we went straight for a landscape service company use. But for that error, we had to come twice and appear before you. And so we're only seeking to waive the costs incurred as a result of coming back to you twice. We've already paid $16,000 in cost recovery fees for the first hearing, and we're only requesting a waiver of the second hearing. So, maybe staff can answer that question, that was in fact the violation issued in error. I think that's the issue.
I can tell you, I don't believe that it was issued in error. Bottom line was that the use was there that was not permitted under the county code. You don't get the landscape as a matter of right. You get the landscape under the county code, even under the AR, requires the approval of the county commission.
And I don't dispute that we would have come to you a single time, not twice. And I don't know how you can say that it's not an error. The violation says you're operating a landscape service company without a nursery component, which is improper. They cited us under the wrong section. I don't know.
I don't know if it was cited under the wrong section. The description says something, but the section I believe is correct. Because it's a table. They were cited under the table.
Can I submit this into the record? It's clear. It's in your package. It's in the B. It's clear as day. They cited us under the AGR district, which says shall be permitted only in conjunction with the retail and wholesale nurseries. They made a mistake, and I know, sometimes it's difficult to admit a mistake, and you start to spin things.
I'm going to say something. I'm not spinning. There's two sections to this notice. There's an ordinance resolution citation. That's to the table. The table includes, unless I'm wrong, you tell me the table includes a section for AG and a section for AR. Okay, and it said the ordinance that we're cited under was that. The description said that it could only do it in conjunction with retail or hotel nursery. The description said they were cited under the right table for having a use that wasn't permitted under that table. Now, we can argue about whether that description is sufficient or not, but I will point out that they did get from the county their own zoning interpretation letter, and the county, based on the information they provided them the answer that they needed to have a nursery component. We didn't ask for that. They asked for that. They got that answer. So, you all can make a decision whether to waive the cost or not. I think we're going off track and we're talking about the basis being a code issue. There's a different forum for that. There's a different fine. This is the waive cost recovery on a site plan amendment. That was a condition of approval back in March on the approval of the site plan. Our position is that they would have only asked for the nursery or the landscape. But that night, you had before you a site plan that had two components, and the request was made to move forward, approve it with a condition to come back, and you did that. So, just like any other condition, it's a cost of doing business, but it is a cost of the town, bills the applicant, and they have a right to ask you whether to waive it or not. Now, I'm not going to debate Mr. Coviello any further on a notice of violation. I think that's for a different forum.
Can we walk through the violation that I attached in my letter and the site?
I think we already pretty well understand it, and all right, Tom.
By not, one thing that should be considered, by not having to have a nursery that you didn't want, you save money. Number one, and you
can't spend $100,000 because of this error. $100,000 goes through a 2-year process.
At this point, we're really gotten far outside of what we were presented last time, which was that there was some sort of issue relative to whether or not you should have had to come back for a second meeting. Now the entire thing was in error from the start. I think it's, just like Mike said, there's other forums and that's not here, so I would make a motion that we just proceed on and not consider this any further.
Okay, do we need, let me ask for some clarification. Do we need a motion to do that, or without a motion does this issue die?
Well, unless you waive it, it's required by your code.
Right. I would suggest that, we have indicated in the report, with $4,944.90 in arrears. At this point, I would think that we could probably Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, we could probably continue the special magistrate matter of litigation until the cost recovery is paid.
I think they're two different things.
Okay, well,
Two different things.
obviously we have to try to collect, $5,000, almost $5,000. If they don't want to pay it, that's an issue.
All right, so right now, look.
If you're inclined to make them pay the money.
Okay, so I'm looking, right now, if we make no motion at all,
It's not waived.
then it's not waived in $4,900 some step. So we need a motion to waive that, correct?
That's okay.
So I will entertain a motion to waive the $4,900 some. Once going twice. I should like a motion. Thank you. All right. We are at Okeechobee D Road Light. Councilman Rocket.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I asked that we add this was to see if we can move this project forward. As we have defined it as a cable installed light, not a mast arm. I believe we were at that point. And the council, I believe it was 3-2, not the majority, not the majority, not everybody. It was going down that path. Now, it's in part, in fairness toward town management, or one your chair, I don't expect me to say that we help him determine which projects are top priority. If he's got 20 projects and they all seem to be top priorities, then I think we're faced with what may be happening now, is my assessment, is you can't get any really one done because you got too many on the top of the list. The reason I raised it tonight, I wanted the council to direct management staff in clear direction to move forward as this is I would label a top priority, and that we move forward with that as a top priority and focus the resources accordingly. I would add, and shake your head too quick, I would add that I would want weekly activity, and I would expect that it may be only an hour in any given week, but weekly activity to see where to move this thing steps forward. We have, as I understand it, we're looking for an engineer to help us with this project. We have, as I also understand it, we have such a resource available to us.
Correct.
So it may be less time consuming on the actual staff in the office to get this thing moving forward. But the intent was to identify it as top priority, and then get the council to so direct the staff to treat it as top priority. And that includes weekly activity on it. And it may just be a note, we set up a call or whatever it might be. I'm not going to accept that this is micromanaging, because I'm trying to set the definition of what top priority needs to be defined as, which requires weekly activity. Now, I know, as I recall, Mr. Mayor, in the past, when we started this whole issue, before I became a council member, it was something that was raised and discussed. It was needed for the town, a light on Okeechobee. I know also, as I recall, the last conversation, Mr. Mayor, that we had, one of your concerns has been that we don't really have the traffic that we used to have. So it may not be as big an issue. In light of how fast government moves forward, I would venture to guess that if we started today building it, in the process of building it, it might take us a year to get there, or longer. So it's really, can't wait for the traffic to be so horrendous that we can't cross Okeechobee without some help with breaking traffic. So we really don't want to wait any further. We know we want to do it, and I'm just looking for the council to say, all right, Mark, this becomes this, and I think you have the staff, the resources that don't necessarily require a lot of staff time to move it forward. And so I would make a motion that we identify this as a top priority, that we move this to top priority on a weekly basis, that we see activity weekly, rules an hour, and if it's a half-hour fine, so that we try to get, that's the definition of top priority, and the council would so vote.
Okay, we have a motion as such. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Ryan. Discussion. Tom?
A couple things. One, I don't know that it's the top priority out of all the things in the budget, so I don't know that that's what. And I know that picking one thing out and declaring it as the top priority is the way to go through and prioritize what the things are we're going to do. Secondly, my recollection was this was going to be something where we were going to get reimbursed by the county for this. To this moment, we don't have an estimate from anybody that means anything of how much this is going to cost. My suggestion would be, as a prudent person and someone who doesn't want to rush into paying for something that isn't ours to start with, is to have our engineer do a study with a reasonable amount of money that can be spent on this study and tell us what the actual construction is going to cost, work with the county to find out what they are going to require us to do as far as the improvements to the lanes, to the canals, to the incoming north and south of D Road. Get together, like as if we were trying to plan this properly and understand all of the costs and all of the things that will be required, rather than just willy-nilly running in to building this traffic light. And find out what it's going to entail. If that means we need to spend $20,000 and the engineer needs to get that information and then come and tell us what the deal is, I think that would be the prudent and professional way to handle it, versus let's just spend time on this and I'm sure the engineer can bill us on this traffic light from now till Tuesday. If anybody can do that, anybody can work on it. I prefer they actually get us some information we can work with. How much is it going to cost? What are we going to need to do? Are we going to need turn lanes? Are we going to need to widen the canal? Are we going to what? Are we going to need to put a whole new culvert under the whole thing? Because you can't just hook an end on each end because that's not allowed. I don't know, but maybe it isn't. So we'll have to see. We don't know any of the answers to this, but rather than just go willy-nilly, let's go spend the money, why don't we get the engineer to tell us? Once we know, then let's make a decision. While we're doing that, let's look at the other things. Some of the things we voted 5-0 on to get paving going out here. Why don't we work on that? How did something that Jim admits was a 3-2 vote, how did that become top priority when there's other things that we all agree with? What about the trail system? There's people here who want to know all the time. What's up with the trails? What's up with the trails? What's up with the trails? Well, nothing is the answer, folks. Nothing, not a darn thing. And, you know, there's people who do want to know. So it's not just a one-way street. That's the county's road. Let the county talk about it. Let them, you know, and if we're going to go to the county, we're going to say, look, when we get done with George Webb, it's going to be $1 million. And then Jess is going to say, well, give me some busloads of people. Well, do we have enough busloads of people to bring $1 million? We might as well go around and try to collect it, because we're not going to get it from them. We're going to get it here. $1 million is $300 for every single person in this town for traffic. And that pretty much blows the $1,000 that I talked about we each have to spend. So if everybody's okay with blowing a third of it on the traffic light, we need to think it through, folks. So I'm asking that in this motion, we will accept the amendment that there first be an engineering study done. Then I'll vote.
All right. Well, it goes back to Jim. We accept that as an amendment.
No, I don't accept it, and I don't accept the willy-nilly approach either. We didn't say anything about willy-nilly. We talked about getting an engineer involved. Nothing was said about spending $1 million. Nobody did any of that. This is something that moved us forward. We've got to come back with information along the lines of what is it going to cost us? Of course, that was one of the things that we had talked about day one. So it's information we will get back. We're not doing anything in terms of willy-nilly. I reject that concept as a nice label when we don't like something. So I would say, no, I'm not going to amend the motion. Let's see if it gets a vote to take it forward, and let's get this moving. I'm just trying to get it done. And, you know, the famous cable guy said, get her done.
Okay. Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just make some comments relative to everything I've heard so far. I know this has been a very passionate issue. You've had a lot of discussions on this. It's been a 3-2 vote for some time. I would say that, you know, as I've reported to you in the past, staff has done a lot of work on this. We're at the point where, you know, several meetings back, we had some discussion on your capital improvements program, because we could start tomorrow. The money's been in the capital improvements program in the current budget year. And you may remember toward the end of that discussion, I did ask you, do you want me to get it started? And, you know, basically, none of you gave me direction, so I figured you would want to wait and hold off. Now, one of the discussions has been the amount of monies, and, you know, one of the actions you recently took, we had 220, I believe, and then 250, and you said take out the 250 on the out year, and just make it 250 in the budget. I think it was 250. The concern has always been, the county has indicated to me, just to reiterate what we've done so far. I had made the contact to Simmons and White, and Simmons and White was pretty much the contractor, one of the contractors that the county had designated for traffic signal design. And at that point in time, we were looking at potentially a piggyback contract. Although I know the OIG frowns on piggybacks, so we try to avoid those piggybacks. And we went through our process, and Councilman Rocket is right. And Simmons and White ended up being the firm we selected for traffic engineering, which does work well for us. So the issue, I've been told in the past that the issue was that the light was going to cost $250. But that was based upon a design and installation of the signal. I can't tell you for sure if it was a wire or a master. I don't remember for sure. I have to go back and check. However, where it got a little convoluted was when I started to talk to the county before I was getting ready to engage Simmons and White on that piggyback. They indicated, oh, wait, town, there are some other issues. You're going to have site improvements and significant site improvements to the canal. That's what I brought back to you. Okay, so now we're looking at it today. We have money in the CIP. I'm certainly willing to work on it, depending upon what your direction is. I can, and what I would probably do, if this is what you want me to do, I can do the notice to proceed to Simmons and White and have them move forward. Give us a cost estimate. Now, whether they're going to be able to just give us the design and installation, or whether they're going to be able to tell us what the county is really looking for in those improvements, because I think ultimately that cost is going to be something you're going to need to know, especially if we're going to be trying to recoup those monies back from the county. So, whatever your direction is tonight, I'll be happy to do it.
Okay. All right. We've got one, another councilman Crump.
I would hope, I thought we had to understand when the engineers came on board that we would get some type of cost estimate now of what it would cost and what we could do. Now, they're engineers, okay, and I could have sworn that the last time we discussed a cable or that we all agreed that we would go the cheapest route. Now, that's what I thought. That was 5 of them, okay, not 3, 2. So, and I would like for the engineers to tell us that we can't, we've got engineers on board, so we need a cost estimate. Now, I find it hard to believe it's going to cost us $50,000 for them to give us a cost estimate. All right, so we have to have a starting point. So we need our engineers now that works well with the county to give us a cost estimate. That means they've got to tell us whether we've got to have extra lanes, whether we have to do a new culvert or whatever. But if we get a cost estimate from the engineers, then at least we'll have something to approach the county with. Hey, we've got a cost estimate of $50,000 for us to pay to get the design and stuff of this red light. Why don't we pay $50,000 when it's your road? Okay, but we have to have something to go to the county and beg. So I would hope that this council tonight would say proceed with our engineers and get a cost estimate and what it would require to put a red light in.
But Jim didn't let that be part of the motion.
No, but that's my discussion, so he may change the motion after hearing what I had to say.
All right. You got one public comment, Frank Showell.
Frank Sherrill, Marcelo Boulevard. I agree that we need to know how much is it going to cost us. and for the initial traffic light installation, it may be reasonable, but we honestly don't know what the county's gonna be looking for. And like Tom Goldsmith said, they may require us to go ahead and widen that canal crossing at D Road to accommodate future expansion of Okeechobee. They may require us to go and put those concrete posts out further to accommodate future expansion of Okeechobee. They may be looking for us to do all the intersection improvements there to accommodate future expansion of Okeechobee. So that may be acquiring more land on the north side of Okeechobee. Having the engineer there so we all can look at this thing and see if it's something that is affordable. I'm just a little concerned that if we were to put a traffic light there, the county would instantly take ownership of it. The county can decide, well, you know what, you don't have a traffic count, so we're going to put it to flashing yellow on Okeechobee, flashing red on D Road. So, you know, these things concern me because the county is never pretty much upfront when it comes to that. And it's a county road, the county should be paying for that. The other thing that the county needs to do, and maybe we should do one also, is to put traffic counting devices over there so we can actually see what the traffic count is. And that's something we can take to the county and say, we have X amount of trips per day or per week on this, and do the same thing on both sides of D Road, so we can show that we do have more traffic on that road than most of the other roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Okay.
Just a comment on that, Frank. George Webb, they've already done a traffic study. They agreed that we can use the traffic count from one end of the statute to the other end. Years ago, they told us we had to have a traffic count at that intersection. That was the only positive thing that's happened through discussion with the county and Commissioner Santa Maria. They've already told us that we can put a traffic light there. They don't need it. We don't need to pay somebody to do another traffic count. That's already been solved. And the other thing is, maybe a frog would bump his butt if he wouldn't bump his butt if he had wings every time he hopped, okay? We need to quit maybe, and we need to get an estimated cost from our engineer and take it from there. If the cost is unbelievable, if we have something on paper, documentation, then we'll go to the county and we'll approach them to see if they're willing to help us and pay for it.
Okay, Ken Johnson.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I think we've got a multifaceted problem here. Not only do we need a light at D Road and Okeechobee, but we also need a light right down here at D Road and Southern. That's two lights. The other problem that I see, and I don't know if anybody else sees this or not, is speed control on Okeechobee. It's a racetrack, folks. And thank goodness I live on the south side of Okeechobee, so I don't have to worry about crossing Okeechobee. But I know a bunch of you up there do. And I'm also hearing that we can't use the existing culvert underneath Okeechobee. That needs to be replaced. Is that what I heard?
We don't know that.
Don't know yet. But maybe that should be a blessing. Maybe we should find out that we need a culvert. If so, you can tear the road up, you can put a detour sign on each end of Loxahatchee Grove. Then we wouldn't need two traffic lights, we'd only need one down here. And it would take us 6 to 8 months to complete that culvert. Then all this traffic that cuts through Loxahatchee Grove would have to find another one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. All right, Todd.
Tom McClellan, D Road. I live on D Road, north of Okeechobee, and I don't see the need for a traffic light there. I use it every day. I go in and out 20 times, 30 times a day. And the rest of my family does. Peak hours of the day, it's not needed. And I know there's only one council member sitting up there right now that lives on that road and drives it every day. And he agrees with me and says we don't need a traffic light there. So I'm confused as to why we're going to spend $250,000 or more on a traffic light that's not needed. Who's asking for it? It's it's not needed, the people that live there, like me and Dave, don't see the need for it. I'd rather see that 250 put aside to an equestrian trail, where you have a whole committee now that would love to have that money for their equestrian trail. That'll make this community unique. That'll improve the community. Practical, like Okeechobee or a rural community that says we're bringing in more stuff out here. Thank you.
I've got two comments I'll read because they apply to this, and then we'll need to read them later on. One is Phyllis Magnolia, and it's please move forward with safe trails. We need trails on the agenda, no light at the end of Okeechobee before trails are complete. And then one from Loring Hart Woods, the equestrian community requests we move forward with safe trails and greenways rather than spending money on D-road traffic signals. So anyway, all right. Any other comments by council members? We have a motion and a second.
I would like to amend the motion to include that the reporting back to us on progress begin with some kind of an engineering estimate that doesn't change the priority that I referenced, and doesn't change when we move forward on this. But it's got to be stated, which to me it's not need to be stated, that we include one of the first reports would be engineering cost estimate, so we can have a discussion for any further direction at that time.
Okay. You're all right with that? Second? Okay, we have a modified motion and a second. Any further discussion or comment? You know, the only thing I want to say is I do live on D-Road. I'm a mile from there. 6 years ago, you couldn't get out of D-Road safely. On a Friday night, I've said before, there'd be 12 or 13 cars in line trying to get out of D-Road. That is no longer the case. I agree with Jim. It takes a long time to get it going, but right now, we don't have any of the development, the potential future development out to the west of us approved, anything else. So, you know, that takes time too. So I think that, you know, we're kind of in a waiting game. I would hate to go through and put a light there before we needed it, and then the county comes through 6 months later and decides that they want to do something different with Okeechobee, and then they rip it all out and change it around. So, you know, I think it's one of those things that to me, it's not as big a priority as some of the other things like Statue Grove. That's my opinion. So anyway, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-2.
Mayor, on that, just clarify once, so what I'm going to do, so please tell me that now if this is a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to negotiate a fee with our engineer. The first notice to proceed is not to design a signal or undertake the work. It's to give us a cost estimate, their best cost estimate as what the signal would cost if we send them forward. Is that accurate?
And the signal's a cable signal, not a mast.
Right. And
I'll ask them to look at the signal, yeah. I'm sure in their due diligence, they're going to talk to the county about that.
you know,
I mean, we need to know whether a signal or a mast is going to be what they ultimately agree to. Correct?
We need a signal with a cable signal cost. So we can then go back to the county, I guess, with more information, but the intent would be to go back to the county and say, why would we need a mast when you have a cable signal at our east and west boundaries in Okeechobee? Why is it suddenly we have to upgrade to something other because somebody else is paying for it potentially?
they install all cable in our whole community. For us to have to go with a mast iron.
That's what Paul just got, that's what Paul knew.
Yeah. The other thing I want to do too is I don't see a need. They're going to want turn lanes, everything else. You know, I don't see a need for that. If we're looking to get our residents out of the letter roads, why do we need turn lanes? Right now, we have a 2-lane road. If somebody wants to turn off one of the dirt roads, people have to stop. It doesn't break my heart that people in the acreage have to stop on Okeechobee, because we need more of them stopping a little more regularly. So anyway, all right. Yeah, let's take a real quick break.
Amazing, I was born and raised out here, never I never
Oh, yeah.
Sure, give her a pen. Hi, guys. You know I'm here.
Right, you don't hear it all when you get home anyway.
When we were going out the other day, he was, Mark was standing there, and my daughter said, no, we're not going to just sit here and talk. You got one. How is he?
All right, moving on to 10C. Right, 10C. 10C. Ron?
Briefly, I'll make it quick. This letter to,
It was a memo from myself.
it was a memo from Mike, but I wanted to put in the agenda so the taxpayers would know that the one reason why we did not raise your ad valorem tax this year was because we can get credit for the assessments and stuff that the water control district gets. Now, we had a period there where we were undecided, but due to our legal and doing an outstanding job, he basically verified that our revenue sharing can be considered with the water control district. So that's why we did not raise your taxes this year. So I wanted it put in the agenda just so the public could read it if they want to. And so you could understand that the water control district is helping us to keep the taxes low.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Moving on to 10D. This is 161st.
I'll make it quick on that one. I'm on a roll. The positive thing with 161st was that after our last council meeting, it was agreed upon by the council that it would get graded once a week. So I'm happy that's been resolved with the water control district and the town office. And I've got some other things about 161st, but I'll bring them up at another time, and I'll try and have some backup material.
All right. Anybody comments on 161st? All right, moving to, I don't want to stop you on the roll. Keep going. 10E, Casey Road.
One reason why I cut it short on the 161st Terrace tonight is because Casey Road's in sad shape. For the people that live on Casey Road, you don't need to look at these pictures that I took today and I took last week. You live in the situation. I basically wanted to bring the subject up of Casey Road tonight so that we could try and get something done for you. Your mailboxes is underwater, your road is underwater. Tom had mentioned earlier that management has a game plan, okay? And I like their game plan, but you're in a situation where you can't wait on it, all right? I don't have a problem with the quadrants. Seems like town management has agreed that we grade every road in Loxahatchee, every town road, a minimum of 2 times a month, okay? That's good for the residents. I don't have a problem with that. Where I have a problem is trying to get put on these roads. Now, I believe, Mark, you can help me out here. Have we had any loads approved to put on Casey Road? And when do we plan on doing it?
Okay, we received a request relative to Casey Road, and I had our public works vendor go out and do an inspection. And I think he also coordinated along with Mike Walker, who may have given the estimate. I'm not sure if Mike actually has provided an estimate, but my understanding, and Frank can certainly come up and address you if you need, is that they are both in agreement that Casey Road needs 6 loads of rock. So that being the case and that being verified, I will issue the district a notice to proceed and move forward with work.
Okay, the other question for you is the notice to proceed. Can you make it happen tomorrow? Now, a week ago, here's the reason why, okay? At the last council meeting, we directed you to get 161st graded once a week, okay? I've got the notice to proceed here, and it's basically a 1-page item. All right, now, I don't know why, but it took almost a week for you to get this over to the Water Control District. And I'm asking legal here for an opinion. I believe that if it's going to take you a week to type this up for Casey Road, then can't you verbally just call Steve Yohe because, and say, hey, we need you to go ahead and we agree with the 6 loads of rock, we need you to go ahead and put it on Casey Road.
Let me answer that. It's not fair for Mike to answer that. Steve Yohe has indicated to me we're under a contractual situation and he wants the paperwork. I'll try to get it done by tomorrow, but understand I got special magistrate, another event to go to in the afternoon, and then I got the meeting I was telling you about earlier. So I'll certainly try to get it over there, but, I mean, I'll try to get it over there.
All right, and I got to make another comment. We're a council, okay? Management works for this council and the taxpayers in this town. All right, now, can we direct that he call Steve Yohe and request that as soon as possible to go ahead and put that 6 yards of road, that 6 loads of road rock on this road? The people are hurting over there. So when he has to wait on a letter, and Steve basically will do anything that tells him. Now, I know that for a fact, and if any of you dealt with Steve, you know that. So to have to wait on a letter to try and help these people out, I have a problem with that.
I'd like Steve to have the letter, but I'd like him to have it soon, let's put it that way. And I don't really want to micromanage Mark, but.
Your Honor, what I'll do is I'll call Steve tomorrow. I disagree with the Vice Mayor. Steve won't do anything. We tell him. I mean, we have a very good working relationship and it's working very well. But what I will do is I will call Steve tomorrow and tell him a notice to proceed will be forthcoming shortly and he gets started. I think if I ask him to do that, not because I'm telling him to do that, but if I ask him to do that, he'll work with us.
Sounds good. Everybody all right with that? Yeah. Okay. All right, I've got Raul Valente.
Hello, Council. Raul Valente from Casey Road. We came in about 10 years ago requesting it to be filled because it was so sandy that cars would get stuck even dry. The same spot got graded the other day and I got stuck in my Toyota Scion because I had to stop. There were some surveyors and I just sank in. I had to have a neighbor pull me out. So when they come in reckless. They do what they have to do, wet, dry. The 6 loads is helpful, but that might have been helpful 5 years ago. If they don't continuously work on it, in 3 months it'll look the same as it does now. So regularity would be ideal. I don't know if that's possible. I know we have a lot to cover as far as the town. So it'd be nice if we could get something regular that we could expect them. Oh, they're a little late. What's going on? Well, because they would come every week, and then all of a sudden after 2 months, and the road gets so bad that when they do it, the grade doesn't do anything. The hose will just pop right back open again. So might as well not have done it at all. I don't know what the council offers. I don't understand what's happening.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so you're going to, Mark?
Just a comment to that comment from the gentleman. The Vice Mayor talked about the fact that we had the quadrant plan loan. You may remember our last discussion, it seemed to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but the council didn't want me to do the quadrant plan. Now, the quadrant plan that Frank and Steve and I and both staffs came up with was to basically eliminate or avoid situations like Casey Road tonight, because we have them on a schedule, be rotating, we have the plan about the district looking and just letting us know if rock is needed, and then us going out and verifying. I'm about ready to pull the plug on that because I thought that was the direction. If you want me to maintain that, you need to let me know now, because in fact, we maybe even sent the email today to Steve.
Okay,
I didn't think that we ever undid the climate plan. And I've heard that too, and I never thought that we undid it. I don't see any reason to undo it. We can't just do one road every week and do all the rest of them never. So, as this gentleman says, we gotta stick with it once you get going. I thought our plan was to do the quadrant plan. That's what Frank had come up with as the most sensible thing, and they worked with the district, and I didn't see any reason why we ought to stick our nose in and change it. We ought to let them do it, so we can say, why isn't it done right, versus keep telling them what to do.
The only problem I had with the quadrant plan is that it's good to, you know, if we were in the acreage, if we were in Wellington, if we're in Royal Palm, our roads, some of our roads have gone years without being maintained at all. I don't see any need to now go in there and maintain that road twice a month if it's been graded once in 5 years. I want it graded as the need be. So there will be some roads that will deteriorate faster than others, some won't need attention. So all I'm saying is I don't want to get locked in that we're running a grader down the road that doesn't need it because we pay for that.
That's a great point, Mayor. I mean, we can go ahead and amend that plan to address, you know, the fact that if there are some roads that don't need the grading, we can look at it that way, if that's a concern.
Well, you know, with Casey Road, I think, to make their point, the reason they're here is because it isn't being maintained.
Right.
And
No, I
in
agree.
their case,
I
it's a through road. It goes from that road, it goes to Folsom. It's not just a little, it's not a driveway.
Right.
It's a road.
No doubt
It
about
goes
it.
through.
No doubt about it. Right.
Yeah, it was, from the last one, from what I understood, the quadrant plan was first to grade all the roads to evaluate the conditions of all the roads. And then after that, we would decide on a maintenance program for the roads. Like obviously some roads won't need to be graded as much as others, but that was my understanding. I never thought we were going to eliminate it. I thought that quadrant plan was to evaluate all the roads first and then come up with our maintenance program.
You're absolutely correct. The first pass through was because we were getting, you may remember, I think I mentioned to you in another meeting that we were getting a lot of requests for rock that we didn't think were necessarily, you know, valid. So we wanted to do the first pass through the town, get a grading on all the roads, and get an assessment of the rock, and then we would continue the plan. And as you're suggesting, we didn't think we were going to need to grade every road every time. I mean, and that would be the way we were going to go. But now I'm kind of, you know, I know there's some, you know, there's some differing opinions, so I need to know because before I pull the plug on these things, I think that's still a valid way to work. And I think that will go a long way to resolve issues like Casey Road and the Ruffin Division. And I think we have the checks and balances in place between both the district and us to work this. So I'll look to your direction tonight. You have to do it every time.
And also in the meantime, like for instance, the issue with Casey came up, I don't think we should ignore the roads that do need help right away, because it's not fair to have those residents wait. But you know, at the meantime, still continue with the evaluation of all our roads.
Okay, got Frank Shallow? Yeah, sure.
Part of the conversation we had was the fact that we have a policy that the council has endorsed for years, which when you call, you say, I need some work done, whatever it might be, it goes through the process, you request the water control district, and there's always been a review, there's always been some feedback as far as requirements. You may get a call, and I know Mr. Mayor, you commented, you get somebody calls every day, but we may have Mike go out there and say, you don't need this thing graded. So that was seemingly working. The change that I particularly commented on was that we were not informed of a new plan, whether it be good or bad, and that we still had the old plan, but as the discussion went on, it seemed like this was a temporary, this was an assessment exercise, and that's what we were doing, an assessment and see what we needed to do. But we still have, and unless the council changes that, we still have a call and request process in place. That wasn't undone. Now, with Casey Road, is particularly difficult, and we're doing the assessment, and we're making an attempt at doing something in terms of road rock, and then we ought to go back and reassess to see if this is helping us with the problem. Which, by the way, I don't know if there's a road in this town that looks decent with the weather we have. When it rains like this, you really can't get it all back the way it should be. You get some nice dry weather, we can get it where it looks pretty good. But Casey Road, the example, that we work with the old process, which is you need something done, you call them. And people should know that. If they've been here a while, they should already know that that's the process we've had. So we didn't say that we're going to abandon that. That's part of what I'm going to bring up into this conversation. And the other thing I understood is this was an assessment exercise. And it wasn't that we were gonna do this every month, because until we decide to do this every month, I want a cost estimate of what it's gonna be. I want us to vote knowing what it's gonna cost us. And what it has been costing us is a big difference. And because we specifically had brought this issue up when it came to putting the contract together with the Water Control District, that we excluded what was written in there that said every month, every road. We took that out. We were very clear about that. So I understand that you're getting mixed signals, and I'm trying to sort through those for you. But I didn't buy into every month, twice a month, whatever kind of schedule. It was an assessment process, and they'll come back with, and with the input from the Water Control District, what may be the thing that they suggest. They may have 20 roads that need weekly, and they may need rock on a monthly basis. That's something that needs to come back to us, because we're talking about significant expenses.
Councilman, now I understand where you're coming from, but I would disagree with you from just the standpoint that, yeah, the courtesy grades did go by the wayside. The policies you're talking about did go by the wayside because we did bid. We have a new process in place. And it's not to be running around, I mean, that doesn't work anymore, not considering what we have.
But you changed the policy the council put forward.
The policy went by the wayside, we did, I didn't change anything.
No, you said you put it by the wayside?
I said the policy went by the wayside when you did a bid. You changed the whole process.
No,
of the
we did
bid.
not. We never said in part of that bid process, it was on demand. As I recall, the way you wrote the contract, you submit a request based on a request that we get, and that's when they respond to the work request.
That was under the old policy.
But that's the policy we never abandoned, Mark, so if you think we abandoned it, then I guess we need the council to say, no, we did not, if they will. I did not abandon it, and didn't go with the new contract. The contract said, first of all, we do not agree to a monthly grading for every road. Second, we put in there the specifics that said, you will submit to the Water Control District an order that basically says, you're going to number them and all that stuff, that this is what's going to be done when the request comes in. So that contract did not change that. But it doesn't mean it can't be changed, if that's what the council wants to do. But I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing we've got something we're exploring, and I think we can continue with that exploration to find out where we come out of this.
I think that at this time, Mark and Frank are trying to work something out. I would really like them to do that, come back to us, versus 5 of us sitting here saying, I think this is our job. Because I totally disagree with what Jim is. I don't think people should call in. I think that's a symptom of us not doing it right. If you got a call, we're not doing our job right. I said that before about the water district. We should not be in a situation where the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We shouldn't be, I know the number down there, let me get this done for you. Services ought to be provided. It's like saying, well, why don't we just wait till I got enough garbage out there, because some days I don't have enough, and I'll just call you when you need to pick it up. It's not an on-demand type thing. I've never heard of a town in the world that just takes care of the roads when somebody's upset about it. It's an absurd concept. It should be one way. And also, and I understand that the people have an issue on Casey Road. There's an issue through the whole town. The roads aren't up to any sort of standard of anything. It's been well stated by many people around here. So what standard is there? Is it 6 roads, or is it 6 loads or 60 loads? What are we trying to go up to? We don't have an elevation. We don't have a standard anything anywhere. We don't have a standard width. Somebody lives on a road like 161st, it's way wide. Casey's way skinny. 6 loads there is going to go a whole lot farther than 6 loads somewhere else. And I don't care about the 2. I'm just picking them as obvious examples of difference. So there's no one size fits all, but it shouldn't be, I know the number to call, we got a call on Monday morning, and pretty soon everybody's just going to call on Monday morning, and whoever calls first will do that road. How do we decide, we need to have a much better standard of how this is done than just cuts.
I think what we've got in the grid system that you put together, I think it's an excellent start. You've got us out on every road to evaluate each one. My envision is then to go down those lists, and say, okay, these are the roads that we've got in this quadrant. We're working in this area, let's look at the roads and evaluate them. And it won't take a lot of time to go into that quadrant and check those roads and say, this one's not going to need anything, this one might need just a pass with a grader, and then that way the Water Control Board can do it while they're there, you know,
I think that's wonderful.
because I agree with Tom. I mean, I don't want it to get to where the person that calls, because you will have some roads where somebody calls every day. And at the same time, I want the roads passable and safe, and don't want a guy getting stuck in the middle of your road. So, you know, I mean, that's important. Frank Showler?
As we wait on Frank, I'll go back to what a couple of people have been out here more than 30 years. They say get four-wheel drive and let's put sand back on the road. Heard that. A lot of E-road people think that.
Yeah.
Council, this grid system that we put up, the quadrant system, was initially done so that all the roads would get graded at least once. The plan was to do that for 1 month and then go back in and reassess. For example, Ian Trail maybe needs it once every 6 months, maybe once a year. 152nd, there's one person that lives on that thing. That needs to be done maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 or 3 years. And that was the whole plan of doing that. You have roads out here, Casey Road's a good example. If you were to put the rock on it tomorrow, we're gonna have rain tomorrow again. The people are gonna get stuck on it again. We gotta let Mother Nature dry us out just a little bit so we can get the rock in there, because the rock's coming in from the pit wet. It's going down on the wet roads, and we all know where that goes to. So, you know, we have places like 24th Court North off of Everett on the east side. That has a lot of people on it. That needs to be graded more than you know, once every 2 or 3 months. So that's where we were going to, and the reason of doing the quadrant system was the district knows ahead of time where they're at and what they need to be done, and the roads that they need to, you know, that road need to be hit hard, and there's other roads that they can bypass. And when they're up there, they know that Mike Walker knows that, hey, I have to be up on, I'm going to be, you know, grading B Road, and San Diego and Los Angeles, they get once a month or twice a month, whatever we come up with. I can just turn down there and do it instead of just going down B Road, going over to South B Road, then coming back up to B Road. So the whole thing was to, as they went by, that they could turn in, come back out, keep doing the district road, and it would get done. It would save them fuel and time, and we would get the job done. So that's what the initial plan was. And, you know, sit down with Mike again and go over these. You know, some of the roads, we're not going to need to touch them, but maybe once a year. You know, other roads, you know, they need to be done every 2 weeks. Some roads need to be done every week. And, you know, we need to go and address this as we need it. And we shouldn't have to wait for people to call us on these busier roads. And, you know, when people are getting stuck and everything. Casey Road, they have another issue. They have a drainage issue 3/4 away down the road from Folsom Road. And it's a vacant lot, doesn't drain, and doesn't go anywhere. And that contributes to some of it. So hopefully we can, the district can get in there and they can raise it up, and they can go ahead and temporarily solve that issue. The other thing with the district is that the combination machine is currently not out in the yard. It's over at the shop. It had a stick or a branch go through the radiator. So it's out of commission for at least the next 3 or 4 days, maybe even longer. We don't really know yet. But and that is you know, one thing that we definitely need over here that we just don't have right now.
Thank you, Frank. Ken Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Ken Johnson, Blackman Canal. I heard in the previous meeting, and I might have misunderstood this, but the assessment on this quadrant plan was going to be done twice for a base assessment. Then they would decide, Mark and Joey and Mike and whoever else was sitting in on that, we're going to decide how often the other roads within that quadrant would need to be done. And then that was it. In other words, if they felt that Casey Road needed to be done 4 times a year, get done 4 times a year. If it was still a problem and somebody from Casey Road called and said, gee, you know, things aren't still right yet, maybe they need to reassess it. But what I heard, there was going to be a base assessment after 2 gradings were done on all the quadrants on each road. And maybe I heard that wrong, don't know. But the thing is, tonight, you were talking about the roads are drying out. I would challenge Mike, or whoever does the assessment on these roads, I drove up Folsom, go up to 25th, I think, and over, and up by G Square and North Road. And there were some places up there that you could have lost a Sherman tank in. I mean, they were that deep. So somebody needs to go out there and do an assessment to find out where these deep holes are. And then when things dry out, fill them in. Because our roads are key, I think, along with a couple other things, to the success of our town. It's going to help raise the value. If you get people from somewhere else looking for property, and they say you see these roads out here, and I know we're used to it, they aren't. But they'll come out to see these roads and they'll say, are you kidding me? We need to fix our roads first. And if you go out there and look at the roads tonight, all this rain, I know it's raining a lot, but you'll see where the holes are that need to be fixed. Thank you.
Todd McClendon.
Todd McClendon, D Road. I'm curious if anybody here knows what the Water Control District recommends in this, because they've been doing it for 100 years. They've got to be experts after 100 years of that great roads. My guess is that the quadrant scale is probably as close as you can get. But I still think they should have more freedom than that. What if, somebody calls on, the other quadrant, well, sorry, we don't want to do that for another 2 weeks. They should have more freedom than that. They know what roads need to be done. Just maintain the roads and give us a bill. If they start taking advantage, which I don't think they're gonna, then you need to rethink that philosophy. But they know what roads need to be maintained, go out and maintain them. And I'm curious of Jim, stating that the roads need to be maintained as people call in. Does that apply to 161st also? Or does it come down to if you're a council member, you get it done once a week? Other than that, you gotta call in this week and go to this.
Oh my gosh.
All right, we've got,
Stupid.
Casey's gonna get done. Any other comments by council members? My envision is, and I agree, I do not want to go with the schedule. Matter of fact, I'm a little hesitant, and I voted for it, but any road, including 161st, when you say we're going to do it, there will be some times we might not need it, there will be other times they'll need it more. So I want to keep that leeway. I want to be able to take care of roads as they're needed during certain times of year. It'll require more maintenance. At the same time, it's much like the mowing. Guys, during the middle of summer, we got to make sure our lawnmowers are working. Middle of winter, let it slide for a couple months, because it's not going to get that bad. And I think so. We have to be able to respond and take care of it.
And Mayor, I'm in agreement. I think what I'll do is Mr. Shiola, Mr. Yogi, myself, and any of his staff, we'll get together. We intended it to be a modified plan after the first pass, as we indicated, and then the first review of block by block. We can probably modify it. We'll all get together and work on a plan so we can modify it so that it's not necessarily a schedule, but it's not people calling in.
Right.
So that we kind of address it and try to be,
All right, I do want to ride up to G Square and see the hole that you can put a Sherman tank in.
I'll show it to you. You got time? I'll take you tonight.
I might drive into it in the dark and then go back.
Bring your diving gear.
Okay, yeah. Okay, moving on then to 11A. Ron? Okeechobee.
Basically, a quick comment. We put in a request to the county to mow the drainage ditch and clean the drainage ditch out on the south side of Okeechobee Boulevard. The weeds and stuff are probably about 5 or 6 foot tall in certain areas. We were lucky. The district put in the request, and they did most of it the next day. I communicated with the county, and the county basically said that what they do, they've got 2 mowers for the whole county, for the North County and the South County. So they basically have a schedule that they comply to. So the way we lucked out was the tractor that was mowing the ditch banks happened to be over on the northwest corner of Sycamore and Seminole Pratt Whitney. So we lucked out, and they just made it over to Loxahatchee, and they did the road. I complimented them on a job well done. I was hoping, I got the name of the guy that's the superintendent for the county. I was hoping that at our convenience, the town could send a letter of, recognition that they did a job and they did it quick. I think the better understanding we have with the county and the better communication, then we might get it if we get in the jam. They told me if we get in a situation where it looks bad, to always call them, and if they can swing it, they'll come cut it. Now, the other thing with the drainage ditch, they said they have two ways. We've got certain areas that are full of hyacinths and they're compacted. They said they can do it by weed control, and if it's possible, they'll do that. He's going to come out tomorrow to even look at the situation. But as far as cleaning the ditch out, if we're lucky, we'll get that done once a year. Now, I asked him if we could possibly get it done prior to hurricane season, but he said it depends on their schedule. In other words, where the machines are at and what they're doing, because they're limited to these grade-offs and stuff. They have to do that. So the other thing, I was hoping to get a consensus of the council that at management's convenience, if we could send the county a letter and tell them we appreciate them going to the ditch bank and they did a good job.
Okay. Anybody want to kick that off in a motion or whatever?
I'll make a motion that at management's convenience, we send the county a letter addressed to the superintendent over roads and bridges and to compliment him on the efficiency and the job well done.
Second by Jim. Further discussion?
I'd like them to spray the ditch more than once a year. Even the district gets around to the ditches 3 times.
Any other?
And Mark, just for the record, the superintendent's name is John Brand, B-R-A-N-D. He's over roads and bridges.
Knowing the bureaucracy, that might hurt you. And then the only thing that I've got, and me, Okeechobee is one of the lesser things, because the better it flows, the more it spurs up everybody else's drainage. Because everybody north of Okeechobee, when that canal is draining really well, it disrupts that flow going south. So I kind of like them being clogged up and not flowing, because it helps my property drain. A little bit selfish, but all that does is the road. And if the water slows people down, it works just like a traffic light. So anyway, okay.
Just like Ken said.
Yeah, just like Ken's Sherman Tank did. Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second to send the letter. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. All right. Moving to closing comments. Public. Okay, Nina, come on up.
Nina Courtney Road, Chair of the Repair Committee. Just wanted to let you know we are making some progress in a little bit of a different way. I have met with Mr. Yogi, and I am going to be at the IGC meeting coming up as a guest speaker. And we will also actually present at the next Los Angeles Water Control meeting. Originally was asked by my committee to present at the last one. However, because of the previous one having been cancelled, this delay had asked me to wait. There's just quite a bit of pressure from the town to get things going, from the residents, to get things going. And I feel that it is so difficult to get things moving with the two government entities, and we have to kind of all, in a way, a lot of this has to be agreed by not only the 5 of you, but the 5 of the board. And it's the beginning of that discussion and just getting it out there and seeing what some of the oppositions are, and what are some of the desires, and how to alleviate any of the concerns, and finish on my way.
Thank you, Nina. All right, Carol Murphy.
Harold Murphy, 13245 Compton Road. Gentlemen, I'm asked to come here by several people on Compton, actually numerous people on Compton. ask two questions. The canal, the drainage, somebody gave you a bunch of smoke and mirrors about how it's draining. From about the center of the street to the west, it doesn't drain. It's to the point right now with this rain we've been having, is the backyard is filling up, the drain fields don't work, the septic tanks are filling, the toilets won't flush in the houses. It's bad. So somebody's got to get that opened up so we can get the drainage so it'll go through into the bigger canal on F Road. The other one is the holes in the road on Compton. I've been asked not to put anything in them that's going to be fixed, it's going to be fixed. Can you tell me if it's going to get fixed or if it's not? Now, they had some guys go out there and put some fill in there, but that's gone. I mean, tonight, the holes in that road are unbelievable. If you drive on the east end and towards the west, it's really, really bad. If somebody hits it too fast, they don't know it's there, the tire goes in, they're going to go in the canal. You could possibly have a fatality. I'm not kidding you, I'm telling you the truth, that's what's going to happen. And you've been put on notice, so if it's a town that's reliable for this. So I think something should be done pretty soon as far as the road, especially the canal. I can't see where we can't get somebody with a track over there and open that canal. I don't know what the problem is, but do you have anything ahead of you, on the agenda or anything you're going to get before the road fixed and the canal open?
What we'll do is we just send somebody over there and look at Compton sometime.
Right. We did have the road repaired done, I think, twice, actually.
This rain, like I said, like having.
Why don't you get in your car and come over here? I'll come and get you. I'm not kidding you. The car's bottom out. It's very dangerous. It's not a point anymore. It's a little couple bumps in the road. The gentleman said it's around the tank. We couldn't understand anything there, but, you know.
I'm the wrong guy to bring over there because if my Toyota gets through it, I figure it's all right. So I'm the wrong guy. I've been out here 34 years. Because the roads are great compared to what they were 34 years ago. So.
You better have good shocks and a helmet on and bounce your head up the ceiling.
Yeah, I remember when I saw vans with broken axles right out here in front of the thing. So
yes.
We don't have that anymore. But anyway.
There is nothing in the future that you're going to fix the road or you're going to...
Yeah, no, we are. We're planning on maintaining all of our roads, Harold.
Yes, sir.
And you know, we just have to schedule it and do it, and you know, and get going. That's what we're talking about tonight. So,
yes, sir.
Mark and Mike, do we have an update?
Yeah, I do. After we talked, I spoke with Mary Vitor. She actually called me. They have the legals. They're going to be re-executing the deeds, the equipment deeds in Compton and Marcella, delivering them to Mark either Thursday or Friday. If I can get them Friday at a special meeting, I can start recording them on Monday. The letter road deeds, they approved them last week. They're going to get signed and delivered to Mark, who I was told either Thursday or Friday. So I can get those. We'll start the recording process on those. Once we have them recorded, then the capital money will be, those roads will be eligible for capital improvements or permanent nature, which we discussed in the past. Hopefully we can fast track the recording of those two roads, those deeds, but I did get that information this afternoon. Just so you know, it doesn't have to come back to you because you all accepted the deeds informal only. You're going to deliver from the district. The district's going to deliver it to us on Thursday or Friday, and we'll have them recorded. Because they originally wouldn't accept the legal because all we did is refer to all the easements, and they said you need legal, so the district went out and got the legal. There are three parcels, I think, on one of the two roads where there is no dedication, so we'll have to identify where that is and work on those three people.
And in conjunction with that, Mayor, as I said, we were out there once and did some patching. The second time, I think we held because of this, again, this snafu with the fact that with the legals. But, under our contract with the district, we can take another look at doing another patch. I just want to make sure what we're going to do is going to hold for a while. And we'll just maybe hear that it's already a problem again.
You're wasting your money if you put patches down. I'm telling you, the whole upper surface of the road is gone now. And it's actually going back down into the shell. So if you can't patch it, you can put some stuff in the hole, get some asphalt put in there, dry asphalt, and that'll hold better than this patch get put in. And again, the water problem, because of the rain we're going to be having, and it's coming, is going to be unbelievable. I'm telling you, you've got to get that, punch a hole in that road there and get it over. I don't want you to get an underground bore or something. I don't
Well,
know.
we're gonna have to look at that. That's,
I don't know exactly what it would take, but it definitely has to be looked at there. Because you can have a lot of damage to people's houses and stuff. I mean, how much kid can come out there, you can swim in my backyard. Thank you for your time.
thank you, Harold. And I've got Keith Harris, and you want to come up on your residential enterprise?
Yes, I'm Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. Gentlemen, you'll have to excuse me and give me your forgiveness. You had a motion earlier this evening on residential enterprises. If I'm not mistaken, you made a motion to completely strike each. Someone clarify that?
We went back to the three, what staff had recommended. Okay, three person.
Ms. Gilda Radner, Winstead, never mind.
All right, moving to town attorney.
Nothing new, I was gonna update you on that, but, stole my thunder.
And what's your always statement?
I always say go Gators, you know, and that's what I stand by.
Okay.
My favorite time of year.
Mike, a question. Yeah, Mike, I was asked for an update on Bryan Road, and short of repeating what we've talked about in the past, but I wanted to just get an update from you. Is there anything new, or what? I mean, we're in the process, you know, and that's kind of, that goes just so many times, we're in the process. And then I'd like to know if there's more than just in the process. I know we're working at it.
And we actually had issued, and Mark will fill in any gaps I may have, but the town manager actually issued a notice to proceed to the surveyor for Bryan Road to look at the documents that we had uncovered as far as the origins of the road and the easements thereon, and to stake it out and to confirm that the road is where it's supposed to be in relation to the easements that we found in the public record. And then once we have that, then we'll be able to go to the individual property owners and engage the same process we had that the county did with Compton and Marcella with the district. That he expects to have that done in a couple weeks.
He, just to fill in, and council, I just caution you, I mean, Mike and I did meet with the surveyor. We explained what we needed on Bryan Road, North Road, and then another the 13th.
The 13th, the one to abandon.
I remember it takes a little time because he had come back with proposals to us. I looked at the proposals, they're fine, we gave him the notice to proceed, and he should be working on it. So we're, you know, when we say it's in process, a lot of times that's the truth, it is in process. So,
I'm optimistic he'll be able to come back and tell us the road is where it's supposed to be. And if that's the case, then we're a long way there to get the paperwork in order.
Okay. I think it's more news than we've had in the past. We can say something specifically is happening, which we've always included in the past. There's many things we have to do.
Right.
And this at least be one of those that we know we had to do, and we actually moved. And that's just, I wanted to get, you know, an update. One other thing I'll just throw out for you guys, there are a lot of people on that road that would volunteer to go house to house with anything we need done. So they are available if you ever get to a point where you need that. We did find that out.
We'll be there soon, I think. Not that we need it, but we appreciate it.
Okay, we're to comments by the council members, so we'll keep going with Jim.
One thing, do you guys have a problem with your PCs where the Viper protection has expired? I raised the question with the town staff, and they weren't aware that we had Viper software. So I just wondered, if you guys have the same problem, the direction is you got to bring your PC in, and they've got to take a look at it. It needs.
What's a PC?
We had put on our PCs when we originally got them, and we went through. Viper is your
virus.
It's an antivirus software.
Antivirus?
Oh, I never installed that on
It's good enough for right now.
It's good software, but I'm going to bring my PC in as directed, but I thought I'd mention it to the council that they very well, except for Ryan, in the same boat where they have now without current version. Doesn't mean they're not protected, just means they're not getting current version of it. So I'm bringing mine in, just to take a look at.
Okay.
Other than that, I've got information I can feed back to Ryan Road residents, and thank everybody for coming tonight. We have, it looks like an early end.
Right.
I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'm happy that we have filled in the empty spots on the RETAG committee. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of stuff getting done. And go Gators and good night.
Okay, Ron?
Just thank you all for coming. Have a good night.
Okay, Tom?
Good. And I don't have it.
You can have mine if you like.
And I'll end up with this. When he said Viper, it reminded me years and years ago in 4-H camp, I remember sitting around a bonfire. And in comes this guy screaming and yelling. He says, "The Viper's coming, the Viper's coming." He runs around the campfire and he runs away. Everybody looks at each other like, what in the world? And then another guy comes running through, "The Viper's coming, the Viper's coming." And he runs off into the darkness. And all of a sudden the young lady comes running through, "The Viper's coming, the Viper's coming," and she runs away. And the fourth person comes in, all wrapped in toilet paper. Thank you all for coming. And good night. Motion adjourned.
That's why he reads those stories for the kids.
Yeah.
Good storyteller. Thank you for sharing that with us. I thought you were going somewhere like that, so I waited.
Yeah.